What if every success you ever celebrated was stolen in an instant? What if the person you trusted most, your own sister, collapsed in pain at the exact moment your life began to shine? And what if, after years of silence, you finally uncovered a truth so dark, so calculated, it would shatter your entire family? Would you dare expose it? The dinner where my light was stolen. I can tell you the exact second my world cracked open. Not when my sister faked her first fainting spell, not when she whispered her rehearsed cries into our mother's arms, but the night I finally laid my trap. And it all began with a celebration that was supposed to be mine. The family dining hall glowed with candlelight, silverware chimed against porcelain, laughter rose and fell like a chorus. It should have been one of those rare evenings where everyone gathered for joy, not crisis. I had rehearsed my words 100 times, waiting for that precise moment when all eyes would be on me. My hands trembled slightly as I stood, glass raised high, heart pounding with both pride and dread. This was it. My moment. "I have news," I announced, and for a breath, the room went still. Then applause erupted like a sudden storm. Uncles slapped my back, cousins leaned in with congratulations. My mother's eyes welled with tears of pride. Even my grandmother, usually quick with criticism, smiled through her glass of wine. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But here is the truth I learned long ago. My triumphs are never mine alone. They are stage cues for my sister's performance. And that night, as the sound of clapping filled the room, I caught it. The flicker of a smile tugging at the corner of Emma's lips, a shadow crossing her eyes. Seconds later, her fork slipped with a deliberate clink against the plate. Her shoulders tensed, her hand flew to her right side, and she let out the faintest moan. Not a scream, not a cry, just enough to slice through conversation, just enough to bend the spotlight her way. Aunt Victoria gasped, cousins leaned forward, voices filled with panic. And as my name dissolved into the air, replaced by hers, I realized the script was unfolding exactly as I had predicted. I had seen this act too many times to count. The brave wince, the trembling whisper for our mother, the measured pain rating, never less than 8, never quite 10. And like clockwork, our mother was already pushing back her chair, eyes wild with maternal terror, ready to abandon the table and rush to her side. But this night was different, because in my pocket was a device humming with silent power. 20 minutes earlier, locked away in the upstairs bathroom, I had pointed the camera at my own face and spoken into the lens like a prophet. I said Emma would wait until applause died down. I said she would clutch her right side. I said she would call for our mother first, and that she would rate her pain between 8 and 9. I said she would ask to lie down, and if that failed, she would demand to be taken to the hospital. And now, as I watched her tremble under the chandelier's light, I felt no surprise, only the steady pulse of inevitability. I had written her performance before she performed it, and the proof, the undeniable truth, sat glowing in my pocket like a hidden blade. The irony was cruel. For years, she had mastered this role so completely that I doubted myself. I told myself I was heartless for resenting her, paranoid for noticing the patterns. But a smirk in the corner of her mouth, a rehearsed pause before describing the pain, the way she always collapsed only when my life took center stage. These details haunted me. I knew deep in my bones she wasn't sick. She was addicted to attention, to sympathy, to bending an entire family around her finger. Yet no one believed me. They called me jealous, ungrateful, cold. They told me Emma's suffering was real, that I couldn't understand the weight of a body that had fought for survival since birth. And maybe once that was true. But not anymore. This night was not just dinner. It was the culmination of years of stolen moments, sabotaged triumphs, and relationships shattered by her schemes. It was the night I finally decided to stop playing the villain in her story and take the pen back into my own hand. The applause had died. My announcement was already a fading echo, drowned by questions about Emma's pain. Is it stabbing or dull? Should we call an ambulance? My father's hand hovered over the car keys like a reflex. My mother bent toward Emma, her voice trembling with panic, ready to sacrifice the evening once again. And then it happened. Emma turned her head ever so slightly, her eyes locking with mine across the table. For a single second, no one else saw it. But I did. The smile, that small, victorious curve of her lips, the silent declaration, "I've won again." But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this time I had prepared the trap. This time, I would not watch silently as she stole the night. This time, I would tear down the stage she had built brick by brick until there was nothing left but the truth. You may think I sound cruel. You may think it's heartless to plot against your own sister. But tell me, what would you do if every triumph in your life was devoured before your eyes? If every joy turned to ash the moment her moan pierced the air? If every relationship, every achievement was twisted into evidence of your jealousy, your selfishness, your cruelty? For years, I lived under that shadow. I wore the mask of the unkind sister, the one who didn't care enough, who was too busy chasing her own success to understand her siblings' suffering. I swallowed my anger because fighting it only made me look worse. But not tonight. Tonight, I held the key, the proof, the weapon she could not disarm. And when the moment came, when the room tilted once more toward her staged collapse, I would stand and I would show them all the truth. So when my mother reached for her purse and my father reached for his keys, I rose with them, my hand already slipping into my pocket. "Wait," I said, my voice steady, though my heart thundered in my chest. The room froze, all eyes turning toward me. Even Emma, mid-performance, faltered for a fraction of a second. "Before we run to the hospital," I said, lifting the phone, "there's something you need to see." And in that suspended silence, where everyone held their breath and the only sound was the tick of the wall clock, I knew the tables had turned. For the first time, she was the one cornered. For the first time, her lies were seconds away from unraveling. That was the moment everything changed. The evidence of a silent watcher. The silence that followed my words was heavier than stone. My phone glowed in my hand, a small, ordinary object, yet it pulsed with the weight of years of doubt, years of being called jealous, years of betrayal. I pressed play. My own voice spilled into the dining room, recorded 20 minutes earlier, steady and certain. In just a few minutes, Emma will clutch her right side. She'll call for mother first. She'll say the pain is an 8 or 9, never less, never more. And if you wait long enough, she'll ask to be taken to the hospital. Every face turned toward my sister. Emma froze, her hand still clutching her side, her expression still twisted in feigned agony. But her eyes, those betrayed her. For the first time, fear flickered there. She had always been in control, the conductor of our family's orchestra of panic. Tonight, the music stuttered. "Sarah, stop this nonsense," she whispered, her voice still weak, still carrying that familiar note of suffering. I'm really in pain. But the room wasn't so sure anymore. I could feel it. The spell was beginning to crack. Aunt Victoria tilted her head, her brows knitting together. My father hesitated with the car keys still dangling from his fingers. My mother's hand hovered in the air, caught between instinctive protection and creeping doubt. Have you ever watched a mask slip, inch by inch, in front of an audience that once swore it was real? That was what I saw in Emma's face. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one shrinking under suspicion. She was. I tapped again, and the next video began to play. This one wasn't my prediction. It was footage from years ago, recovered from a high school security camera. The grainy image showed Emma in an empty hallway before my graduation ceremony. She thought she was alone. She didn't know the camera was there. And so, there she was, frowning, clutching her side, tilting her face toward the glass window to study her reflection, practicing which expression of pain would look most convincing. Over and over, she rehearsed the collapse she would stage in front of hundreds of people, timed perfectly to steal the spotlight as I received my diploma. Gasps broke around the table. "My God," whispered Aunt Victoria, covering her mouth with her hand. My grandmother crossed herself, muttering something about sin. Emma shot to her feet. "That doesn't prove anything. I was nervous. She faltered, words slipping through her fingers like sand. I didn't give her time to recover. I swiped, opening the next file. Screenshots, message after message, the cruel words that had ended my relationship with Jacob, written in my voice, my slang, my style, but not by me. "I hope you die, faker." One message read, "You're nothing but dead weight." Another, more venomous. "Sometimes I wish you'd never survived at all." Jacob had believed them. He had left me, disgusted by the girl he thought I was, and Emma had smiled at me across the table as he walked out of my life. My father's hand trembled as he read the lines aloud, his voice darkening with each word. Emma? This is sick. Those aren't mine, Emma snapped, her voice suddenly sharp, the frailty vanishing like smoke. She's making this up! Sarah is lying! But wasn't that the question echoing in every mind at that table? Who was really lying? And more importantly, how much longer could the liar keep her story straight when the walls were closing in? Before Emma could gather herself, I tapped again. This time, the room filled with her voice, recorded only weeks earlier on a call with her friend. It's really easy, she laughed. You just need to know the right spots. Mother panics if I say it's a headache. Stomach takes longer. And it always works best when Sarah's having a good day. Then everyone feels sorry for me and hates her for being cold. The sound of her laughter in that recording was like nails dragging across the room. My mother flinched, her eyes wide, tears brimming but refusing to fall. My father looked as though someone had drained the life out of him. Cousins who had once rushed to her side now leaned back, staring as if she were a stranger. And yet Emma still fought. It's fake! She shouted, her voice cracking. She edited it! She twisted everything! Don't you see? She wants to ruin me! Her desperation was rising, but so was mine. Except mine wasn't desperation anymore. It was clarity. For years I had been cast as the jealous sister. But here in this room, her empire of tears was collapsing. The gasps, the whispers, the shifting glances. I saw the family turning. Doubt was a seed, and I had planted enough tonight to let it grow. But was it enough? Would they finally see her for who she truly was? Or would they, once again, choose to believe the girl who had perfected the art of suffering? Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all from Dran. If you followed me this far, if your heart is pounding as mine did that night, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Your support is what keeps these stories alive, what drives us to keep unveiling the truths that hide in the shadows of families. And I promise you, what comes next is darker, heavier, and more shocking than anything you've heard so far, because the truth was still only half exposed. I had shown them her rehearsals, her lies, her manipulations. But the deeper betrayals, the ones that cut not just me, but the very foundation of our family, were still waiting. And as I looked at Emma, trembling, cornered, yet still trying to wear the mask, I knew I had only just begun. So I ask you, how much deceit can a family bear before it breaks? How many lies can a single person tell before even their own tears lose all power? And when that final mask falls, what will be left underneath? A victim or a monster? Stay with me, because the answers were about to come crashing down, and they would change everything. The throne built of tears. The air in that dining room was no longer just heavy. It was suffocating. Every breath felt stolen, every glance like a knife. Emma's protests were growing louder, her voice cracking under the weight of exposure. Yet still she clung to the role that had shielded her all her life. And for a moment, I almost wondered, would she manage to twist it again? Would the family, blinded by years of habit, fall back into her hands? But that was when I revealed the detail that even she had not prepared for. Money. Cold, undeniable, traceable money. I reached for my bag, my fingers closing around the thin folder I had carried like a talisman. The family leaned forward, uncertain, suspicious. My father asked, "What now, Sarah?" His tone was weary, as though he feared one more blow might shatter the fragile order of the evening. "Tell them," I said, staring at Emma, my voice sharper than I'd ever allowed it to be. "Tell them what you did with the money they gave you." Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face before she smoothed it away. "What money?" she whispered. Playing confusion, her hands still pressed to her side as if the illusion of pain could still shield her. I opened the folder. Bank statements. Dates, transfers, receipts. And alongside them, photographs. Photos Emma herself had posted online. A new handbag, lipstick in limited edition shades, nights out, captured in glitter and champagne. Purchases made with the same money she had begged for in trembling whispers, claiming insurance wouldn't cover the medication she desperately needed. My father snatched the papers from my hand, his face drained of color as he scanned the transactions. "Emma!" His voice trembled, but it wasn't with fear, it was with fury. Over $3,000. $3,000! In 6 months. All for this? He shook the receipts in the air, his hand shaking. Father, please. Emma began, her voice breaking. But the room had already shifted. My mother, once her shield, now looked stricken, betrayed, tears cutting sharp lines down her cheeks. My grandmother whispered a prayer under her breath. Cousins stared, wide-eyed, as if watching a tower collapse in slow motion. And yet Emma still tried. I can explain, she insisted, her voice trembling now, not with performance, but with genuine desperation. It wasn't like that. Sometimes I needed to feel normal, to buy things, to live a little. Isn't that what you all wanted for me? To live? Her words were clever, calculated. She was turning the guilt back on them, framing indulgence as survival, making luxury sound like medicine. And for a heartbeat, I could see the doubt flicker again in my mother's eyes. So I struck harder. Is that what you call it, Emma? Living? Lying about prescriptions? Pocketing cash? While we all lost sleep thinking you might not survive the night? Was mascara worth our tears? Was champagne worth their fear? The room pulsed with silence, broken only by Emma's uneven breathing. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because the money was just the surface, and I had promised myself I would drag every secret, every betrayal into the light. Do you think this is the worst of it? I asked the table, my voice low, deliberate. Do you think empty bank accounts are the deepest wound she's carved into this family? You haven't seen anything yet. And there it was, the tremor in Emma's lips, the first crack in her defiance. She knew what was coming. Her eyes pleaded with me now, silently begging me to stop. She shook her head slightly as if she could will me into silence. But why should I stop? Why should I, the sister who had lost every milestone to her staged collapses, the girl branded jealous while watching love after love slip away because of her poison? Stay quiet one moment longer? Do you see the cruelty in it? To watch someone not only steal your joy, but twist the knife until even your grief looked like selfishness? How long can a person endure before the truth demands to be spoken? I turned to the family, to the people who had once believed I was cruel for questioning her. The money was just proof, I said. Proof that she doesn't just fake pain, she profits from it. Proof that every tear you shed for her was wasted on someone who saw your love as a currency to be spent. And then I leaned forward, locking eyes with Emma. But there's something you can't buy, Emma. Something no amount of makeup or handbags or champagne can cover. You can't buy back trust once it's gone. You can't purchase forgiveness with the money you stole. And you certainly can't erase the truth I'm about to tell them next. The room held its breath. Emma's voice rose, shrill now, panicked. Don't, Sarah. Please don't. Don't you dare. But what could she do to stop me? She had built her empire on lies, and I had dismantled it brick by brick. Now I was reaching for the foundation, the betrayal that would shake not just me, but every person who had ever defended her. I straightened, my words cold and final. You've all seen her lies about pain. You've seen her lies about money. But now you're going to see how far she's willing to go to destroy her own sister. Because Emma didn't just steal sympathy. She stole love. The table erupted in whispers, eyes darting, pulses racing. And in that storm of shock and dread, I saw it. The mask falling. The performance breaking. Emma's shoulders sagged, her face pale, her lips trembling. She knew the next revelation would burn her last bridge, shatter her last illusion. The money had wounded them, but the truth I was about to unleash would annihilate her. So I ask you now, what would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed not only your faith, but your very heart? How do you measure the weight of betrayal when it costs you love itself? Stay with me, because this is where the story sharpens into a blade, and the cut it makes will be one my sister can never heal from. The last shot fired at the table. The silence in the room had become unbearable, a living thing pressing against our chests. The money revelation had cracked the walls of Emma's kingdom, but what I was about to reveal would tear it down to rubble. Everyone could feel it, an unseen weight hanging in the air, the sense that the final blow was approaching. And in that silence, I heard her voice. Don't, Emma whispered, her tone stripped of performance now, her mask crumbling. Please, Sarah, don't tell them. Her plea only deepened the tension, because when the guilty beg for silence, what does that say about the truth they fear? I turned, meeting her eyes across the long dining table. You didn't just take their money. You didn't just take their sympathy. You took what you could never earn. Love, my future. Confusion rippled around the table. My aunt leaned forward. My grandmother frowned. My father's jaw tightened. What do you mean? He demanded. And then I said the name that had haunted me for years. Michael. The word itself felt like a thunderclap in the room. My mother's eyes widened. My grandmother gasped. A cousin muttered, but wasn't he? Yes, I said, voice cutting through the chaos. Michael Devereux, the man I was going to marry, the man who wanted to propose, the man I thought was mine, until Emma decided she wanted him too. A stunned silence followed, thick with disbelief. Emma shook her head wildly, her hair flying around her shoulders. No, that's not true. I didn't. But I was already unlocking my phone. With a flick of my finger, I displayed the messages, the texts she had sent him, dripping with manipulation. First disguised as concern. Sarah isn't ready for marriage. She'll ruin your life. Then shifting into seduction. Photos in lingerie, captions about how she had always had feelings for him, about how she was the one who truly understood him. The family stared at the screen in horror. My father slammed his fist onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. My mother covered her face with trembling hands. And Emma? She tried to reach for the phone, her voice breaking. He messaged me first. He needed someone. I was just trying to help. But wasn't that the cruelest twist of all? She could even twist betrayal into a performance of kindness. Tell me, what's worse? To lose the person you love to fate, or to lose them because your own blood reached into your life and ripped them away? My voice rose, raw and unyielding. Do you want to know what Michael told me the night I confronted him? He said, you told him I never loved him, that I was using him, that I was only with him until I found someone better. You fed him lies until he believed them, until he doubted me. You poisoned his heart, Emma, and you did it with a smile. The silence that followed was different from before. This was not disbelief anymore. This was revulsion. Pure, unfiltered revulsion. My cousins shook their heads, muttering. My grandmother pressed her hands together as if in prayer. My father's eyes were burning with something I had never seen before, something between rage and grief. And Emma finally broke. She slammed her palms onto the table, standing so fast her chair clattered backward. Fine, she screamed. Fine, I did it! Are you happy now? I stole him from you. I wanted to see you suffer. I wanted to take something from you for once in my life. You had everything, Sarah. Everything. And I had nothing but pity. So yes, I took him. Because I could. Her words echoed in the hall like a confession carved in stone. And that was the twist, the turning point. Because for the first time, there was no mask left to hide behind, no performance she could retreat to. She wasn't pretending to be sick. She wasn't feigning weakness. She was standing bare before them all, bitter, jealous, cruel. The family recoiled as though the truth itself was poison. My aunt whispered, "Dear God." My mother wept openly now, her sobs raw and broken. And my father, who had always been the man of reason, the solver of problems, looked shattered. Do you see now why silence was never an option for me? Do you see why I had to expose her, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but this moment? Because sometimes justice isn't a courtroom. Sometimes it's a dinner table, with the truth laid bare like a body on the floor. I took a breath, steadying myself. My hands were trembling, but not with fear anymore, with release. Years of doubt, of humiliation, of being told I was jealous and cruel had been burned away. The truth had been spoken, and Emma could never put the mask back on. If you felt the tension of this moment, if your heart raced as mine did when her mask finally fell, I ask you, please, consider giving this video a like. It may seem like a small action, but for us, it is a huge encouragement. Each like is fuel, pushing us to bring you more stories, raw, real, and unforgettable. But our night was not yet over, because even after her confession, there was still one more twist. The room had heard the truth, yes. The family had turned, yes. But would they hold her accountable? Would they finally stand with me after years of defending her? Or would pity, that old poison, creep back in? Ladies and gentlemen, stay with me, because the end was approaching. The climax, the final confrontation. And what happened after that would change the course of my family forever. If you don't want to miss what comes next, subscribe to Dran now. Your support is what keeps these stories alive, what gives us the strength to keep pulling back the curtain on the secrets families hide. And trust me, you will want to hear how this story ends. When the mask finally fell, when the last of Emma's words faded, the room fell into a silence so complete it seemed the very walls were listening. Her confession still hung in the air, jagged and raw, the kind of truth that could not be taken back. My family sat frozen, the shock etched into their faces, their belief in her shattered. For years, they had built her up as the fragile child, the one who needed protection, the one whose suffering defined us all. Now, that illusion lay broken at their feet. But the true twist was not Emma's confession. The true twist was what I saw in their eyes. Finally, at long last, recognition. They looked at me not as the jealous sister, not as the cold-hearted skeptic, but as the one who had carried the weight of truth alone. For the first time, I was not the villain of her story. I was the survivor of it. Yet even with that vindication, the moment was not triumphant. It was tragic, because as Emma sank back into her chair, her face pale and streaked with tears, I realized she had destroyed not just me, but herself. She had spent so long pretending, so long performing, that when the mask finally fell, there was nothing left behind it but emptiness. Is that not the saddest fate of all? To fight so hard to be noticed, only to be seen for what you truly are at the very end? My mother sobbed openly, not out of pity anymore, but out of grief, for the daughter she thought she knew, for the years she could never get back. My father's silence was heavier than his anger, his disappointment cutting deeper than any words could. One by one, my relatives looked away from Emma, not with sympathy, but with shame. No one rushed to her side. No one offered comfort. For the first time in her life, her cries met only with silence. And I knew then that justice was not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is the absence of applause, the absence of belief, the absence of rescue. Sometimes justice is simply the truth standing tall while the lie crumbles to dust. I stood slowly, the strength in my legs returning after years of weakness. Emma looked up at me, her lips trembling. "Sarah, I'm sorry," she whispered, though the words sounded hollow, born more from desperation than remorse. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please." But apologies, I had learned, mean nothing when they come only after exposure. Regret is not repentance. It is fear wearing a new mask. I looked around the table, at the family who had once doubted me, who had once left me alone with my pain. "Now you know," I said softly. "Now you see her as I always did, and now you understand what it cost me to carry this truth alone." There was no victory in my tone, no gloating, only release, only the quiet exhale of a burden finally set down. I gathered my things, sliding my chair back. My mother reached out, her hand shaking. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice small, afraid. "Away," I said. "Away from the lies, the poison, the endless cycle. I have given enough of my life to this shadow. I will not give it another day." My words broke her, but they healed me. For the first time in years, I felt light, free. The walls that had closed in on me were gone, and before me stretched a door I should have walked through long ago. As I moved toward the exit, Emma's voice rose behind me, ragged and desperate. "Don't leave me! Please, I'll change! I promise I'll change!" But I did not turn back, because sometimes love means staying, but sometimes love means leaving, choosing yourself when no one else will. And I had spent too many years believing that endurance was love. Tonight, I finally understood that freedom was love too. The door closed behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. For the first time in years, the sound of Emma's cries did not make me guilty. It made me free. And as I stepped into the cool night air, I thought of you, the listener, the witness to my story. How many of us live under someone else's performance? How many of us swallow our truths because speaking them would make us the villain? How many of us endure injustice because it is easier for others to believe a lie than to face the truth? If you take anything from my story, let it be this: you do not have to live in silence. You do not have to let someone else's shadow swallow your light. There is power in standing up, in speaking out, in saying, enough. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it will cost you. But what you gain is worth more than any pity, any sympathy, any illusion of peace. What you gain is yourself, your voice, your dignity, your freedom. And perhaps that is the most important truth of all. freedom does not always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with tears, sometimes it comes with slammed doors, but always, always, it comes with the promise of a life no longer lived in chains. So I leave you with this. If my story struck something inside you, if it reminded you of a truth you've been too afraid to speak, then let it be your sign. Let it be your permission. You are not weak for walking away. You are not cruel for exposing lies. You are not wrong for choosing yourself, because in the end, that choice is the bravest one you will ever make. And with that, my story is done. Now, if this story moved you, if you found a piece of your own truth in mine, please consider giving this video a like. It may seem small, but to us, it is everything. Each like tells us these stories matter. Each like fuels our passion to bring you more voices, more truths, more journeys that deserve to be heard. And if you want to walk with us further, if you want to hear more stories of hidden battles and quiet victories, then subscribe to Dran today. Because this story may be ending, but there are countless others waiting to be told. And perhaps the next one will be yours. Looking back, what unfolded at that dinner table was more than a family drama. It was the unmasking of years of manipulation, the collapse of a story built on lies, and the birth of a long-awaited freedom. For years, one sister thrived on the sympathy of others, weaving a net of falsehood that caught not only her parents, but an entire family. For years, the other sister carried the silent burden of being miscast as cruel, jealous, and cold-hearted. When the truth finally surfaced, it was not a moment of glory. It was a moment of clarity, one that carried both pain and release. The lesson here is not simply about betrayal between siblings. It's about the courage it takes to confront patterns that drain us, the strength it takes to speak truths others refuse to see, and the freedom that comes when you refuse to be defined by lies. Silence can sometimes feel like the safer choice, but silence has a cost. It corrodes dignity. It steals years, and it allows deception to thrive. Speaking the truth may shatter illusions, but it also sets us free. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: love does not mean endurance at any cost. Love is not enabling, nor is it sacrificing yourself endlessly to keep the peace. Sometimes love is distance. Sometimes love is walking away. And sometimes love is finally choosing yourself when no one else will. How does this apply to your life right now? Maybe you're dealing with someone who manipulates your kindness, who thrives on your silence, or who twists your compassion into control. Maybe you've been told that speaking up makes you selfish, or that protecting yourself makes you cruel. But hear this clearly. You are not cruel for standing your ground. You are not selfish for protecting your heart. And you are not wrong for demanding honesty, dignity, and respect. If this story teaches us anything, it's that the truth always has a way of coming out, even if it takes years. And when it does, you'll find that the courage to face it is worth every difficult step along the way. So, I invite you now, don't just listen to stories like this. Let them remind you of your own power. Let them give you permission to walk away from the lies in your life, to speak the truth you've been carrying, and to live free of chains that never belong to you. Join our community at Dran to continue exploring more stories that challenge, inspire, and reveal the hidden battles so many of us face. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to Dran. Your support gives us the strength and motivation to keep bringing you more powerful, captivating stories that deserve to be told. The next story may be one that changes the way you see your own life.